So that looks like recording's on now. Okay, cool. So you can see I have my start frame, my idle, my run, my walk, jump, fall, and a one hit ground frame. And all I need to do is export this to bring into Unity. So all I need for exporting is I just need to select the mesh that it's linked to. I don't actually need to select the all the cat rigs and everything because the mesh has a skin, and the skin is already linked to all the bones. So all I need to do is export that mesh, and it'll know that it needs to export the skin. If I tell it to export animations, it'll also export all the bones because it needs the bones to have animations in there. So export, selected. What don't you believe me on? So we're gonna do Iron Giant underscore for Unity. Okay. So we can see the same options that we had. This time we're going to be taking animation. We don't want to bake animation. If you have issues with the animation, you can bake. Bake meaning like it locks a keyframe every frame, and it kind of like it also will lock vertex deformations. So we don't need this, but if there is something we 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 find an issue with, we can go back and turn that on. Deformations, we have skins only. We don't have any morphs. We'll be looking at morphs in the future. I don't have any curve filters on. These are like ways to reduce the size of the animation, but we're not really doing that much, so we're fine. We could change characters to HIK, but I'm going to leave that off for now because Unity kind of does that anyway. You can see up here, I do have an animation only. So, for example, if I import this character and the animations, so it'll come in as a mesh, a skin mesh, and in Unity it's seen as a skin mesh renderer. So it'll come in as a skinned mesh, um, and it will be skinned to those bones. In the future, if I want to make more animations, let's say I'm like, ooh, I want like a fall down animation, which I don't have, or like, a slide animation, or rollerblading, whatever. I can add that on and then just export only that section, and I can tick this so to only export the animation, meaning I don't have to re-export the geometry, which just saves a tiny bit of space. The other thing is, if I scroll down here, I had this issue just a couple of weeks ago. So the FBX file format type, usually we just leave this alone. But so I was working on 2020, and weirdly, there seems to be some import problems in Unity 2021 and 2020. So the FBX 2020 didn't quite work, so I had to revert back to 2018. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that, just if you see any errors, like the animation isn't working, like some parts of your mesh are not working, try to revert back to like one of the older versions and see whether that works first. Obviously, check your settings. If your settings are all right, try to revert back. So I'm going to remind everyone of that one more time. If you have all the settings correct and everything was set up correctly and exported correctly, but when you try to import into Unity, no matter what you change in the settings, it's still messed up. You may want to change to a FBX file format version that's at least 1 year behind the Unity version that you're using, or the same year. So I'm not sure why, but it seemed to solve my problem. Um, yeah, so let me just export that. You will usually get these errors, like unsupported controller, blah blah blah, all these problems, blah blah blah. So again, unless you import Unity and you see that it actually messed up stuff, we can just ignore all this stuff. We can also bake as well if the animation isn't coming in correctly. Cool. So let's import this. animations, and here's our engine for Unity. It's an FBX. Perfect. So it's there. Let's just check whether it works. So in the inspector panel, first thing we're going to do is check the scale factor, which I think should be fine because I did set up. Yeah, that's about fine. That's 1 meter there, and it's about 2 meters high, or 2 units high. Sorry. Yeah, it's about 1 meter wide, about 2 meters high. You see where the spawn point is because that's why I set the spawn point. So it's spawning from there, which is correct. So if I have a floor there, it would spawn standing up on the floor. So all good, looking great so far. It doesn't have an animator, but we'll deal with that in a sec. So if it was too small, too big, you could change the scale factor here, as we've seen for other stuff. So if I go 2, that's gonna just set it up to 2 and just make it bigger, but it's fine. We want to convert units. We want to basically leave all this stuff default. We don't really want to mess with any of this stuff. I don't think, no, mesh compression, no, we don't want any of this stuff to be messed around with. For the rig, we're going to use a generic. There is a humanoid, and technically we're a humanoid, but humanoid is used more for IK, so inverse kinematics. So stuff like if I'm walking, and I hit like a staircase, it'll actually walk up the staircase. However, the problem with that is that it it may or may not work for your rig specifically. So the humanoid rig is very specific. If you check the Unity humanoid rig, it's a very specific kind of rigging that you need to do. So it follows like this kind of thing. So yeah, it especially if you have something like, you know, a spider or a horse that I'm expecting, you won't be able to use the humanoid. So generic will work for everything. And then we're going to go to animation. We're not even going to mess with materials yet. If we wanted to mess with materials, I could assign it here, meaning like even if I just drag it in, you know the way usually you drag it in and it's just white, but you can reassign it here. But we're not even going to mess with that yet. So we have a bunch of stuff here. So we can import the constraints. It doesn't really matter, but we can import them. This is for stuff like if we have like guns or like handheld stuff and you're changing constraints. We're going to import animation, obviously. And then resample curves, we'll leave that on for now. We just want to see whether it's like working or not. And we always have an animation compression as well that will reduce the keyframe reduction, the size. If we're seeing errors, we can turn that off. But for now, let's leave that on and see if we can get away with it. Okay. So we see like we have this thing called clips. The first clip, and by default, it's just going to give me the full range. So I know, because I would have taken it down, but I'm not smart and I didn't take it down. So I know it's frame 1 anyway, for sure. So like here's frame 1, and it goes until frame, I think it's like 100. Okay, let's go to 9. Oh, let me turn on. So 0 to, let's say 100. Let's see what happens there. And we'll call that idle. I'll just name it engine underscore idle. Starts at 1 to 100. There may be an error here. Let's see. It may skip at the end. Yeah, you see that little jump skip? So this sometimes happens, especially with longer animations. So basically what it's doing is, because we have a compression on it, it is kind of like extrapolating between the last frame and the next frame. So let me see if turning off the compression will work first. Let me apply that. No, it works a little, but there's still a little jitter. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, there is. So now what we need to do to solve that, I'm going to turn on loop time, so it knows to loop. That won't solve it. It's just telling it that this animation loops. But what we can do to solve this is, I'm going to go from 1 to maybe like 98 or something. So like a couple frames back. We're going to turn on the loop pose. We're going to add a reference pose, and we'll put that at 99. So let's see whether that works. Much better. See, it doesn't jerk anymore. Oh, a little. So let's drop that back to 98. This to 97. So you're kind of reducing it one frame at a time, essentially. That's much better. Actually, maybe put that at 99. This at 98. This one at frame 2. So I'm just trying to cut in the frame. That's much smoother. I'm trying to cut in the frames and get them to like not be affected by the other frames to the left and right of it, if that makes sense. So I'm getting smaller into the animation. So I'm starting at 2, ending at 99. I have a reference pose which is 98, and you just mess with these numbers, but you usually want to stay within 1 or 2 frames of either side. The loop pose, just turn that on, and loop time is just on, so it knows to loop. And that works pretty well. It's not too bad at all. Okay, so we have an idle, and I just need to hit plus. That's an idle, that's set, and this will be my run, I believe. And that'll start at 101 until, is it 130? No. 125. Should go longer, 126. Yeah, that's pretty good. Doesn't really jerk either, so I don't need to do all that stuff I was doing before. Cool. Run is 101 to 126. I will tell it to loop, and then don't need this reference pose. So that's done. Add another. So this will be, what is it, 127 to, I don't even know. 155. Yeah. Anyone see any jerking there? No jerkiness. Let me put the game window here so I can have a bigger view. Are you talking about in Unity, or are you talking about in 3ds Max? Yeah. What do you mean by so how have you done it in 3ds Max? Do you remember I said like there's 2 ways. You can either add new layers in the animation section, so you can either add new absolute layers and name each one, but I just have one animation layer and then I animate them sequentially along the same timeline. So how have you done it? Turn off recording there. So next stage, I've done my walk. That is looping, and there's a tiny jerk there, so I might actually add one of those additive reference frames and a loop pose. Let's see if that gets rid of it. Ooh. Maybe I should end at 156. Nope, that completely wrecks it. 154 to 153. Start. There we go. Much better. Maybe we can end back at 155. Yeah, cool. Alright, so then we're going to go to the, so we have walk there. Next one is falling, I believe. So this is 156. Oh no, jumping. This is jumping. Yeah, you can see it jumping. So until around frame 179, 180. Let's see what happens at 180. Let's do 179. And again, loop time, loop pose. Ugh. There we go. So just keep jumping. Oh, forgot to name that. And then we're going to have the Iron Giant and the Skull fall. This, I believe, is 180. No, 181. Yeah, 2. Who knows? Should have written this down. Oh, it should be the last frame actually. So it should be like 204. 204? Maybe 203. Let's do loop time, loop pose, and the pose frame is 202. Cool. And then the final is just a hit ground frame. And that'll just be 205 to 206. And this one won't loop. It'll just be a real quick. I wonder, can I do 206 to 206? I don't think I can. I think it has to be 205. No, I can. So it's just one frame, and it's just that one frame. So it's frozen in this frame. Cool. No pose frame for that one. So that's all set up. Apply that. Cool. And if I open this now, you can see all the animations are there. All of them are set up. So I can go to an animator and set them up. So let me do a Animator Controller, because the Animator Controller controls all the animations. And this will be Iron Giants. And let's drag that onto the Iron Giant. Did I go in? No. Cool. And on that animator is where we drag all our animations. So I'm going to pull out my animator as a separate window. Show me this animator, please. Thank you. And all I need to do is grab these animations and drag them in. Now the good thing about dragging them from here is if I go and replace this FBX, let's say I'm like, ooh, I don't like that walk animation, for example, like, I don't really like this idle. I'll go back into 3ds Max, edit it, but as long as the times are the same, and export the same file again, like from 0 to 206, I just need to replace this in Explorer. So show in Explorer. Just need to replace it here, literally just copy replace. If I copy replace here, it'll update in Unity. All the timings will still stay there, all my animations will still stay there. I don't need to remake like all these kind of like chopped up animations with a desk done. I don't need to do them all over again. Okay. So idle, jump, run, walk. So idle, walk, run, jump, fall, and hit ground. So from the start, I want to Iron Giant idle to be declared default state. From idle, it's probably going to do walks, and from walks, it's probably going to do runs. I could do a blend tree. Should I do a blend tree? Yeah, we'll do a blend tree in a sec. And then we'll have a jump, which will happen probably from any state, meaning no matter what I'm doing, I should be able to jump, and I should be able to fall from any state. And then after fall, it's going to hit ground, and after hit ground, it's probably going to go back to idle. So I'm just trying to arrange them. Idle, walk, run. So these will go together. These go together. I might do a blend tree for these. Let's see, create state blend tree. to do, and if the speed is, no, let's just do a normal one for now. I'll do the blend tree later if I want to. Cool, so my animator is more or less set up. I need to know the parameters I'm going to take in, so I don't know what parameters I'm going to do. Oops, why do I have a blend parameter? I don't know which parameters I'm going to do, so I will have to set those up. Now, happily, I'm not going to force you to code. I have been very nice and created a package as well as some scripts. So let me bring in those scripts first, and we close that. So I'm going to bring in those scripts here, import new asset. I believe those scripts still work. Here, import. Cool. So I have a basic character controller for 3D. It uses like a rigid body, and I have a basic kind of like thing that controls like direction of movement. So if I'm moving in a certain direction, it'll rotate the character to face that direction. So first of all, let me make a 3D object cube. I'm just going to make a floor to walk on. Just going to move up this orange one. Okay. And I'm not going to, again, if you remember from first year, I don't want to create empty. I don't want to have the code and the animations on the same thing. I want to separate them out. So here, this empty game object now, this will be my player. All my physics and my code is going to go in there. And my Iron Giant's going to go as a child of that. So this is where I'll add my like capsule collider. Maybe I'll use a capsule collider. Cool. Oops. Cool. I need a rigid body 2D. No, sorry, rigid body. And let me check that script. So I need a rigid body. I need to move forward. Blah 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 blah. So that script should be able to go here. What do I need? Animator. I think that finds itself automatically. Yeah, it does. So it should find that animator that's an Iron Giant. It's got move force, jump force. So let's give it a move force like, I don't know, 40, 200. Max speed is 10. Let's see if that works. All compiler errors has to be blah blah blah. Cool. So it's giving me an error. Face direction movement, blah blah blah. What is your problem? Already contains a definition for either of these. Oh, does it already exist somewhere else in this project? I think it might. Yes, they do. Whoops. So let me just get rid of them. from here, delete. Okay. Sorry about that. They just already exist in the project. So now let's drag this one on. Cool. And cool. So move force again. I don't know. 40, 200, 10. Play. So it's working. It obviously like is not constrained, so I need to remember my constraints. So I need to freeze my rotation. In actually, let me freeze them in all axes. I don't want this to rotate at all. It's the same thing that we did in first year. I don't know if you remember. It's the same problem. Like if you don't remember to fix your rigid bodies. Okay, so it's moving, right? So we got a problem here, which is that it's not animating at the moment, which is fine. So let me stop that. Okay, so it's moving around, which is kind of not great. Let me do a main camera. Let me drag that up there. Do I have Cinemachine in this? Yes, I do. So I'm going to create a Cinemachine virtual camera, and we're going to look at the player. Oop, stop playing. No, Cinemachine virtual camera. Look at the player, and let's put the virtual camera like up here. So that should follow the player as we move. I'm not sure if my camera's the wrong way around. It's a little confusing, so I have no frame of reference. But I think the camera is the wrong way around actually. Let's go there. Yeah, okay. So that's much better. It's moving around. It's a little confusing because my camera is just following. I could actually just leave it there and not. Let's not follow for now. We'll fix that in a second. So now it should just be looking at that point. Cool. Just a bit easier while I'm testing this stuff because I'm not sure whether it's, going the right way. Cool. So now what we can do is once we have that set up, we just need to set up our animator to actually animate. The other thing I can do is face direction of movement here. And let me put that on the... I actually need to remember. Yeah, I think that goes onto the animator here. Could be wrong, but I think it goes here. Yeah, it does. Turn speed 3, turn sensitivity 1. So that should rotate the character, there you go, in the direction that it's facing, that it's moving, sorry. Alright, so then, like, basically the capsule doesn't move, this, like, the code for it, no, the code for it, the physics, this physics stays exactly the same. And it really depends on your kind of game. Some games, you don't want that to happen. You do want all the colliders to rotate as well. So like if you think about if I have a hitbox on my arms, they need to go with me. But it just depends what I'm doing. In this case, I'd rather have the capsule the same and everything else rotates around it. So I have these two scripts set up. So that's done. And then the last thing I just need to do is set up my animator. So you should be well used to this stuff. So that's the exercise that you have for the rest of today, which is to set up that animator for your character. If you don't know how to, if you don't have a character, I have a package that you can download and use, but it's got errors in it, so you're gonna have to fix that. Let me just pause the recording.